I damn well knew it. I sighed quietly to myself, lifting my phone to immortalize the memory of this moment, before quietly leaving that I expected to catch her in a lie. Not what I got. There is no coming back from this. We will not survive it. Tracy. Nominative determinism in all its glory. I should have been smarter before marrying a blonde whose name ends with Y. People who give their children stripper names are not trying to instill them with strong moral views on the world. She came home more than an hour after I did, and as usual cheerfully exclaimed, "Hi," as she burst through the door like she was afraid the butter would melt. I was half watching one of those game shows that requires no more skill than snakes and ladders, and was lost in my thoughts. I didn't pay attention to her, and she didn't notice. Lost in her own little world of stupidity, which had become the norm in recent weeks, while the game show host was mumbling about an amazing prize she was offering, I heard Tracy carelessly toss her handbag onto the kitchen table with a clunk. In just 1 month. Bastard. He worked fast. By my calculations, in less than 4 weeks, she had completely given herself to him that I watched what was happening in the background. First with anxiety, then with rage, and finally with resignation, curiously observing how everything would unfold, until I got tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was that week when I decided it was time for both of us to do some soul-searching before pulling back the final curtain on this ridiculous charade. Aside from the fact that she had only been working at the new job for 2 months, I joked about it with her when she took the position. The old stereotype about secretaries sleeping with their bosses, working as a legal assistant at a mid-sized law firm, meant we had the chance to witness office drama, and we laughed about people having sex with each other behind closed doors. Yes, I made her promise to keep me updated on the office gossip. I put on a business-like demeanor, time for my sales experience to pay off, never challenge their beliefs and prejudices. Some drunk executive starts bragging about sleeping with his wife's sister. You reply, "You dirty dog," or something like that. Think they start spewing disgusting, racist, sexist, or homophobic nonsense. Not a chance. You don't even blink. You smile, nod, change the subject. Any new gossip in the office lately? I asked loudly, turning my head toward the kitchen. No, at least not that I know of, Tracy replied, as she entered the living room. Mostly paperwork, meetings, and research. Not a nonstop stream of a Mexican telenovela. Oh, come on. I know you've only been there for, 7 weeks? But that office has a pretty intense power dynamic. Airhead secretaries sleeping with their married bosses. That stereotype exists for a reason, I said. Noticing a slight pause in her response, I turned to disarm her. What about that girl? What's her name, Stephanie? Didn't you say it looked like there was something going on between her and one of the junior partners? No. Turned out it was nothing special, she answered, flopping onto the other end of the couch in her white blouse and pencil skirt, stretching out her stocking legs. And if there is something, it's very low-key. Turns out she has a boyfriend. She doesn't stop talking about him. She's in love with him. I glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. The blouse was semi-transparent, form-fitting, and had a noticeable neckline. That had started 2 weeks ago. I noticed her outfits had become much more fitted. That, and the switch from ballet flats to heels, and a slightly raised hem. Looking back, I realize it was obvious. But at first, I thought she had just relaxed a bit, getting used to the dress code. That's normal when starting a new job. It's better to be overly formal at first and then adjust to the atmosphere than to dress too modestly and make a bad impression. Well, I suppose that's for the best. After all, they say you shouldn't crap where you eat, I added. Though, it's a shame for you and me. What do you mean? She asked with a smirk. What? That you were wrong, or the shame, I asked, catching a glimpse of her frowning out of the corner of my eye. Well, both, I guess. Got her. Time to turn the screw. Well, it's a cute little trap for naive fools, isn't it? But on the other hand, it's kind of amusing to watch from a safe distance as it happens to some dumb, trusting bitch, or in my case, to hear about it. In any case, in a grim sort of way. Watching the office romance, bingo card fill in real time and all that. Trap, she repeated. I nodded, still pretending to watch the TV. Oh yeah, truly a disgusting movie. The boss goes all out, using pickup. Artist tricks. Struts like a peacock and talks about himself, flatters the dumb girl, and carefully invades her personal space. Maybe has a drink, to get to know each other better. After work, badmouths her current partner, and suddenly he's head over heels for her, and she belongs to him. It's a deal with the devil. I don't understand this. She belongs to him, Tracy, said quietly, but firmly. That just sounds like a regular office fling. Well, think about it. I mean, take your boss, the senior partner. James, what's his name? There was an awkward pause before she finally answered. McMasters, as if she had mysteriously forgotten her boss's last name. Right. You said old Jimmy is married, has kids, right? So if he's setting a trap, he'd probably say his marriage is falling apart. He'd describe his nagging, nitpicky wife who doesn't appreciate him, I said, wagging my finger while imitating an angry housewife. Of course, it's all a lie. He's never going to leave his wife, he's just trying to get into the panties of some naive little fool, I said meaningfully, hinting at some of the lines he had probably used. Judging by how awkwardly she tensed up, it was a solid hit. Theoretically, I added, I know you would have told me all about his terrible family life if he had tried that on you, after all my requests for juicy gossip. I paused. Her silence spoke volumes. That's exactly why I keep asking about it. My job is frat parties. Half the guys spend their downtime flirting with our middle-aged secretary Olivia, except for the few brave, deluded fools who try to defend the boss's wife. They're always bragging to me about that sleazy crap. It's all beer, babes, and sports. It makes me sick. Yeah, you've mentioned, she added dismissively, referring to my usual reaction to the crap I hear every day. She grimaced. I wouldn't like it there. But that means I've had a masterclass in the tactics of bastard bloodhounds. I grinned at her. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. As soon as she spreads her legs for him, what comes next? She becomes a burden, a threat to both his job and his marriage. A smart lawyer like him would never drag it out. He'll either forge some documents claiming poor performance, or, more likely, he'll just do it openly. He'll explain to the poor, trusting little fool that appearances must be maintained, that you can't show favoritism, and make her sign a resignation letter, then sleep with her at the same damn meeting. I noticed her flinch slightly beside me. Another direct hit. How dumb of a bitch could she be? Well, as they say, lust and stupidity go hand in hand. Eventually, she said, That sounds a little far-fetched. Yeah, Machiavellian. Anyway, work and fun are two different things. Why would he bother? Oh, but don't you see? It means he can fire her for cause, toss her out at any moment, and no one will question it. Now she's just a disgruntled employee spreading lies to stir up trouble. What do you think happens the second she tries to end it? I don't know. It seems a little ridiculous. I don't think anyone is that calculating and cynical. A senior partner, not calculating and not cynical. How do you think someone becomes a senior partner while working honestly and sticking to principles? It's all politics and backstabbing. If you don't want to believe it, that's fine. Either way, one of three things happens. First, I declared, looking her in the eyes and raising my index finger. She gets fired without warning, and a dark cloud looms over her. Career's over. Second, I raised a second finger. She fails, and he tolerates her. She bores him, and then, bam, fired again for cause. And finally, the third option, I said with a malicious grin as I voiced the last part. She wised up and took the missionary position while secretly looking for a job elsewhere. Either way, she's either a sex slave against her will or a loser. Screwed literally or figuratively. Was all she could say to that unpleasant truth. So yeah, it's grim, but that's reality. And that's exactly why all big companies these days have anti-fraternization policies. Hell, that's why the military cracks down so hard on marital infidelity. Though I've heard some people enjoy it. If I remember correctly, it's a BDSM game called the Power Game. Well, she said after a long pause, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Like I already told you, nothing like that is happening. I gave a short chuckle, and finally added, as I said, it's a shame. It would have been fun to hear the details secondhand. What was it you said? Oh yeah, like a telenovela. I'm starving for some drama. I left everything as it was for now. A small, ugly lump of raw, awful truth that she had to digest while I figured out my next move. That night, we both lay in bed with our backs to each other, miles apart despite being inches away. I radiated anger and hatred, and I was surprised she couldn't feel it. I could certainly feel her newfound guilt and uncertainty. Sleep came slowly, and I could tell the same was true for her. I think that night, she stared into the darkness for a long time, trapped by her own choices. She didn't know it then, but that was her last chance. Perhaps one well-chosen word would have been enough. Something with remorse, regret, or even a sign of love. A gesture of repentance, something tangible. But no, she said nothing. I knew that by morning she would manage to minimize what I had said, because the alternative was too real and too terrifying. But I also knew it would dull her shine, and based on her previous reactions, the potential consequences I had predicted would haunt her. She would be left with the foolish notion that she needed to make some kind of decision, when in fact it was already out of her hands. The next day, her modest outfit was far less silly. Too little, too late, my love, that it's just a game of playing, hard to get. You'll convince yourself it worked and go back to it in a day or so. Hell, he'd probably enjoy persuading you to resume the affair, but he wouldn't have to try very hard. Then again, things change fast. They'll have other things to worry about. I returned to the role of the loving, forgetful husband, but 2 hours later, I was already ringing a doorbell with an envelope in my hand. A good-looking woman, who didn't look like a prostitute, opened the door and responded, "Yes, to my Mrs. Weston." "I'm afraid your husband may need to fire his assistant again," I said, handing her the envelope, before saying goodbye. I added, "I don't know how you deal with it, ma'am. Things like this cannot be treated kindly, and she is not my concern. It was cruel. But I'm sure the poor woman with the slack jaw understood what I was hinting at, because a moment later, her expression hardened, and her hand gripped the paper more firmly. All of this further justified the assumption that this wasn't the first time he moved too quickly and smoothly, that he had probably picked out Tracy for a warm-up ride from the very first interview. When I looked back before starting the car, Mrs. Weston had pulled out the photo and was staring at it with a grim expression on her face. The sight of her loving husband bending my loving wife over his desk, her skirt pushed up to her waist, made an impression. That day, Tracy came home early and looked distinctly miserable. But me, why should I be miserable? We had no kids, our finances were separate, and the apartment was rented month to month. I spent a couple of hours packing up the remnants of my life and loading them into the car. By the time the alarm buzzed on my phone, I was already sitting in Davy's kitchen, complaining to his pregnant wife Alyssa about my future ex. They said I could crash for a month or two on the air mattress in the nursery. The terms were pretty strict, but I was very grateful for their generosity, and it would be enough. We watched together on my phone, Tracy and her, Walk of Shame. When I got a notification from the surveillance camera on our front door, Tracy had wanted to get one of those smart security systems, the kind sold under the guise of convenience, but fueled by paranoia, and I hadn't argued about it that I have to admit. It came in handy now. She sat in the driveway for a full 5 minutes before getting out of the car. When she finally did, she moved slowly, hunched over with her head hanging low, shuffling toward the front door like a guilty drunk. She paused before fishing her key out of her purse. I think maybe she was expecting a "told you so" kind of greeting. Then again, she probably had her doubts when she left for work, so she surely knew I was aware of her intentions. After that, she didn't even look surprised when she walked into the living room and approached the photo taped to the wall. She just stood there, staring at it blankly, before finally wandering off. Alyssa had been cackling the whole time like a witch, peppering her words with mocking comments that made me feel a little better. It was obvious how things had likely unfolded, and I felt a slight pang of smugness over my prediction from the day before. I never did find out how things turned out for Weston and his poor wife, because I never asked. I didn't care. Why should I think about it? That was Mrs. Weston's cross to bear, that I found a new place fairly quickly, and furnished it just as quickly in line with the aesthetic of a lonely bachelor. The secret is low standards. I threw myself into work. I pestered friends to spend more time with me than they usually would. The usual things. I still missed her in the pre-dawn hours when sleep slipped away from me. But in the daylight, I always knew I had tried my best, and had spent more time and effort on her than I should have. I'm sure I have my flaws as a partner, but I didn't deserve what I got in return. At the very least, I managed to escape with the remnants of my pride and self-respect intact. In the end, about a month later, I did finally speak to her alone, but it wasn't for her, and it wasn't for myself. I hold the view that forgiveness is for grieving relatives, not for cheating liars, so the conversation was only for her parents, my father-in-law and mother-in-law. They had always been kind to me, and although she hadn't told them exactly what had happened, they both quickly put the pieces together, that she had lost her husband and her job on the same day, and decided they didn't need more information, but they wanted me to talk to her in person, to meet face to face and, at the very least, bring things to a proper close, to help her move on that IT still hurt. But I agreed for their sake that IT their house. Her father greeted me warmly, but sadly at the front door, and led me into the dining room before disappearing. She looked crushed. Her complexion was sallow. She wore baggy sweatpants and a t-shirt, and her expression was gloomy and downcast. We sat across from each other at the table in silence for a long time, before she finally began. "It all happened, almost exactly like you predicted," Tracy said, without lifting her gaze from her hands resting on the wooden tabletop. "I screwed everything up, didn't I?" "What do you think?" I snapped, before pulling myself together and starting again. "Look, once you spread your legs between us, it was over. You should have known that." She tried to defend herself, but even after a month, the best she had was, "I didn't do that. I didn't want to." "Oh, please." I interrupted her more calmly than she deserved. "Don't do us both a favor and don't look for excuses. Some part of you had to understand. You dropped your panties so fast it was like you were racing for a gold medal in rapid partner swapping. Your poor lonely little Jim talked you into it so fast I'm surprised he even had time to get it up." I shook my head anyway. "You only lasted 3 or 4 weeks, and I didn't catch you right away because I thought we were stronger than that. I had more faith in us than I should have. You might as well have sent me the photos yourself. It was that obvious. You're terrible at being deceptive, well, at pretending. You give too much away. You should stick to being honest. I thought we were stronger than that too. It was just something thrilling. The situation got out of control, and I was kind to you, you know? I interrupted. I had plans, feasible revenge fantasies. I could have made the ending a lot more thrilling than it actually was. I even seriously considered taking away your birth control. I had everything in my hands." Her eyes widened at the thought. "Your sexual interest at home dropped off pretty quickly, so I figured you wouldn't even notice if I played the role of a celibate, cheerful roommate for a few months. We'd have to file for divorce at the maternity ward, but instead, right up, to the end. Even though I hated you for what you were doing to me, to us, I gave you a way out. All she said was, "I was going to end it." "No, you weren't," I said firmly. "Maybe that's what you told yourself. Maybe more than once. But it's a lie." "No, I really was. I knew it was wrong. And I truly knew I was doing a bad thing," she said, looking at me with sad, narrowed eyes. "I saw you." There wasn't an expression of, "It's over," on your face when he was pounding into you in his office. I had already figured out that you were sleeping him. But when I saw that, I just wanted to catch you in a big lie, something specific I could point to. I didn't actually expect to see what I saw. "I'm sorry you saw that." She looked away. "It was just physical. Please, at least understand that. That's another one of those untruths people tell themselves. If it was just physical attraction, you wouldn't cheat on me with a toy. What's it like, having a little spicy secret? Thinking you have something over me. Thinking he doesn't know. And looking at me while still feeling him inside you. Knowing that you know something I don't." Her eyes widened, and I think she recognized something unpleasant in herself that she hadn't noticed before. "Well, I still tried to give you a chance, even knowing all that. Even after I told you how it would all end. I know it rattled you. But if you had confessed right then, surrendered to my mercy, I might have wanted to try. You already knew everything by then, didn't you? But at that moment it would have been like an Ave Maria. I don't think I could have done it by then, even if I had wanted to, not after seeing that." "Is there really no chance?" she asked with a pleading look. Honestly, there was no hope in her eyes, but I think she needed to ask, just to be sure. "No," I replied sadly. "Okay," was her only response. She lowered her head again. A moment later, she mumbled into the floor. "I had to ask. I'm sorry, Sorry for all of it, for every second. I don't know what was happening to me back then. It was like I went crazy, like I entered another reality. But I want you to know that I'm sorry." She looked at me with wide, pain-filled eyes. "I know it doesn't mean anything, because I can't take it back. But I'm truly sorry," and that was the end of it. After that, I went to say goodbye to her parents, and her mother looked at me with hope, as if we might reconcile. She asked if I'd stay for dinner. I think her father knew that wasn't going to happen. He gently shook his head before I could even offer my apologies. Nothing could magically heal the wound Tracy had inflicted on our marriage. Her father said, "Thank you for supporting us. Good luck." We agreed on a simple, uncontested divorce due to irreconcilable differences. There was no point in dragging it out. We didn't have any significant assets worth fighting over, and there was no reason to be in the same room with her again. About 6 months later, I saw her working the register at a grocery store. She looked thinner, but healthier, and certainly happier than she had during our last conversation. Honestly, I was surprised. She has an advanced degree. She could have just erased that job from her resume and moved away, started over somewhere else with a clean slate. I think making suboptimal life decisions might be one of her habits I hadn't noticed until that moment. Hell, maybe I was one of them. Must suck to be her. As for me, by that point, I had almost completely forgotten her emotionally. I had a good job, a promising new girlfriend, and most importantly, I was divorced. Thank you for being with us, and if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like. It helps new stories come to light.